Good afternoon. My name is Drew Eckelson, and I'm the very proud faculty director of the Doctor of Education Leadership program. It is an honor to welcome you to the 2020 EDLD celebration ceremony. We are here today to honor the achievements of the extraordinary C Great. To C8, we have all assembled to this virtual ceremony to pay tribute to you. Your accomplishments are many, and we are here because we want to show respect for your individual and collective achievements. I represent the spirit of the entire EDLD faculty when I say that we revel in your success and share a sense of great pride that the American education landscape is ready to receive an amazing cohort of equity warriors. We know what the sector will soon learn. All of you, and I mean all of you, have the knowledge, the skill, and the dispositions to lead transformational change for America's school-age children who, along with their families and their communities, will be the lucky beneficiaries of your collective impact. I want to begin by thanking and acknowledging a few individuals who are instrumental to getting us to this point. I want to begin by thanking Dean Long and Academic Dean Lusso, who support the EDLD program in so many critical ways. Their leadership and support of the EDLD program has been unwavering, most especially at this moment in time, and their support is appreciated by all. Liz Siddies previously served as the faculty director of this prestigious program for almost a decade. She made a personal commitment to this cohort as she transitioned into her new role. I will always be here for you. Like any exemplary leader, she delivered on her promise, and no matter how busy she was in her current role, she always found time to support this cohort and the individuals in it. On behalf of Cohort 8, I want to thank Liz for her leadership and for modeling for all of us what it means to deliver on your promises. Moreover, I want to personally thank Liz for all of her great efforts to support C8's incredible journey. On a personal note, I want to thank her for her unconditional support and guidance during our leadership transition. I also want to thank and acknowledge Assistant Director Tycee Coppett. A wise member of the cohort once shared with me that Tycee is the heart and soul of the EDLD program. Truer words have never been spoken. I'm incredibly grateful for Dr. Coppett's leadership, her guidance, and her support. I know that Cohort 8 joins me in sharing the belief that Tycee has left an indelible positive mark on Cohort 8. We all thank her for all that she has done to advocate. Matt Rose, Beatrice Wazin, and Mark Johnson have all been instrumental to C8's EDLD journey. And I want to thank each of them for their support, most especially during the residency year. The behind-the-scenes work they led to ensure a seamless Capstone Defense Week, among so many other scopes of work, was the proudest moment of my first year as EDLD director. I think it is also important that we recognize the mentors and supervisors who hosted our graduates in their residencies and provided invaluable experiences which supported their individual development and growth and provided opportunities that best prepare our graduates for the demands of system-level leadership. Finally, I want to thank and acknowledge the families and loved ones who have been so present in their support of our EDLD graduates. While we all recognize the privilege we've been granted through this program, I acknowledge that this experience also surfaces a number of sacrifices and challenges. I know each of the EDLD graduates we salute today has benefited from the love, the encouragement, and the partnership from their families and loved ones. We would not be here today without you. On behalf of the EDLD faculty, I thank all the individuals who have been a constant source of inspiration to our graduates during the ebbs and flows of their doctoral studies. A few days ago, I had a chance to reflect on my first year as the faculty director of the EDLD program. I think it is fair to say that this was not the year I anticipated, and it was not the year that any of us predicted. Even with all the challenges we face as a community, one thing remained constant. C8 always showed up. And like all great system-level leaders, you showed up when it mattered most. You showed up at your residency sites. You showed up for your communities. And you showed up when it was time to defend your work. The proudest moment of my first year was when I had a moment to reflect after the last C8 capstone defense. I reflected on all that I learned from each of you, and all that I learned from the clear patterns and trends that cut across your exemplary work. I wanted to take a moment and share some of my thinking. David, you taught us that we can enter into a new organization that is so fundamentally different from ones in which we've historically led, that we can leverage the strengths and talents we bring from those past experiences, and we can learn about new organizational cultures and drive access and equity issues from inside, even when the culture is not familiar to us. Dia, you consistently reminded us that the future is cross-functional and pushed a project in one of the most complex bureaucracies in our sector that was cross-functional in nature. You demonstrated that it is possible to co-construct transformational practices even in complex settings. Adriana, you showed us how you lead with intentionality and with principle. You've designed for and committed to addressing a huge gap in our sector. How do we support students in learning from prenatal to grade 12? San Diego is now leading cutting-edge innovative work because of your support and guidance and leadership. Rebecca, you supported a school district to examine how we collect and report data, most especially in the context of race and ethnicity, and proffered a clear argument about why that matters and how equitable data collection can be used to interrogate policies and practices that have historically disparate impact on some groups of students. Claire, you taught us that we need to plan for the needs of our multilingual learners and readers at the beginning and at the center of the design process, and not as supplemental. You've done this while leading and supporting one of the largest instructional initiatives in this country. Your commitment to the needs of multilingual readers has made a huge positive impact in the lives of so many learners. Tyler, you demonstrated that we can have our own innovative ideas. In your case, how to construct a system that puts people first, and then design a human capital system that delivers on that commitment. You've taught us how to organize our priorities around an organization's most important resources, its people. Lance, you've helped a school district deliver on a long overdue promise, the creation of a dual language school. You've implemented what you learned from the literature on bilingualism, biculturalism, and change management to lead for equity from within. Stefan, you reminded us that system-level leaders need to be courageous and even in the most complex political environments, stand up for what they believe to be right and to be just. You've shown us as a way to lead on an important principle and how to do it with your integrity and pride intact. Bonnie, you focused your core work on the challenges that negatively impact most teaching and learning functions in a school district. You found real, sustainable ways for collaboration between student support functions and curriculum instruction units. I hope you will share this work broadly within the sector. James, you had the courage to tackle a grow our own leadership pipeline, even when the challenges were real and in one of our country's largest school districts. I applaud you for doing what few organizations have had the courage to do. Focus that initiative on the talent that already exists within the organization. Yasmine, you reminded us that there is no single path in the EDLD program, that we can all carve our own path, and we can do it by returning to a familiar place. You showed us all how to tell powerful stories that reframe narratives that focus on humanity and the real voices from within our communities. Marielle, you leveraged your interpersonal and community organizing skills to bring a diverse set of advocates to the table to advocate for an agenda that puts Massachusetts children and the principle of equity at the center. I've led in the state for a while, and this has never been done at this scale before. You demonstrated that when we create space for others to talk and lead, impact follows. Adam, thank you for your commitment to designing policy from the margins. Until your presentation, I'd only thought about this concept in the realm of practice. Your focus on policy and practice, and in the context of the needs and opportunities of students who have all too historically been ignored, was inspiring. Shanna, through your scholarship, we've learned that even the most influential and high-impact organizations need to take inventory of their work and their mission. We must all create space to engage in complex questions that focus on our organizational identity, our mission, and our impact. It is through these dialogues that we must have the courage to acknowledge when it is time to pivot. Carrie, through your work, we realize that colleges and universities have an important role to play within the American prenatal to 12 education system. They can't sit on the sidelines and need to listen to the needs of their local education system, and most particularly, support them to lead for groups of students who the education system has underserved. You've offered a model and guidance how to make that happen across our country. Sinn, you've leveraged learning from HGSE, most specifically, your personal commitment to leading deliberately developmental organizations. And through your strong relationships and in a context that was personally and professionally meaningful to you, you supported a focus on the development of adults in psychologically safe environments. Ray, you listen to the voices of principals and use that data to help a district think through their strategy for improving academic outcomes for its students. You confirmed what you already knew. The work can be messy. And you learned that you can navigate through this by focusing on the right things, keeping open dialogue between and among stakeholders, and managing up, across, and throughout the organization. The school district is stronger because of your leadership, and they are now more ready to accept the next challenges before them. Tim, you considered a really important question with which superintendents must grapple all the time. What is the return on the investments we prioritize? You rolled up your sleeves and entered at the ground level to really understand the impact of an instructional initiative and supported their improvement. Matt, a superintendent needs to have his, her, or their finger on the pulse of what is happening in a school district, and most especially on the most sacred place within that district, the schoolhouse. Through collaborative design and your own interpersonal skills, you develop the trust from internal stakeholders to lead something that is really hard to do. Design an accountability function that is a perfect balance of both accountability and support. Todd, Superintendent Stewart, you reminded us that system-level leaders need to focus on priorities, and sometimes must say no to work that falls outside of those priorities. You've gifted us with a framework for making determinations on what is most important through your work leading the portrait of a graduate. Charisse, you lead by the principle that is the title of your seminal document, A Seat at the Table. You maintained a commitment to design principles that put equity at the center and garnered the respect of a community who have historically felt marginalized by educational leaders in the city. Courtney, you returned home to lead an agenda that was top of mind when you entered the EDLD. How do you create opportunities for some of Mississippi's best talent who've historically been denied opportunities to teach the state's children, to be in front in the classroom teaching students? You solve this dilemma from inside a state agency and Mississippi's children have benefited because of it. Mike, you remind us what I hope is the most central principle to our program. System-level education leaders must commit to putting learning at the center of the design process. You've worked tirelessly to put learning and how students learn best at the core of your work, and I know in collaboration with your colleague, children from San Diego will benefit from your core commitment to children and their learning at the center of how you lead. Mark, you have always demonstrated what it means to be an advocate for immigrant students and families. Your unwavering commitment is inspiring, and I know you will continue to do work that feeds your soul and pushes all of us to do better. Kofi, I've appreciated your commitment to and stance that what and how we measure student success matters. Your work and commitment has forced me to re-examine my own practices and beliefs about accountability and results. It was important to me to comment on the impact of each of you as 25 individuals, because I wanted you to step back and realize the impact each of you has accomplished. When I return to close, however, I want to make a different and more important point. System-level improvement and transformation does not happen through a single individual. It happens through team. I want you to reflect as you hear individual speakers who will share reflections on all of you about a single question. What is the story of C8? What is your story as a collective, and how will you impact outcomes and opportunities for students in the future? It is now my honor to introduce Irvin Scott, who will speak on behalf of EDLD graduate James Mercer.
It is my honor to speak on behalf of James Mercer. I am super excited about the work Jim has done and will also do in the future to improve outcomes for children. I think there are 3 core reasons that I'm looking forward to the impact that Jim will have in the future. First, Jim is deeply committed to schools, school leadership, and impact. Prior to coming to Harvard, Jim worked tirelessly as a principal at Henry County Middle School. Along with the leadership that he exhibited prior to coming to Harvard, Jim has been a dedicated student, as well as supportive student and scholar for myself here at Harvard. Knowing my passion for faith and education partnership, he worked with me and inspired me and encouraged me as I worked on the Leadership Institute for Faith and Education. He also worked with me to help design my Role of Philanthropy course by doing some critical preliminary research before the class. As his advisor, I have also had the pleasure to watch him evolve and grow as a learner and leader. Second reason I'm excited is Jim is a nimble leader. During his residency in Clark County School District in Nevada, Jim worked almost single-handedly to ensure that this district of 325,000 students and 336 principals created a coherent plan for building a pipeline of strong school leaders. Jim took on the challenge directly. He was able to navigate competing priorities within the district while moving forward the superintendent's desire to stand up a strong, aspiring principals program. This was all done in a matter of 10 months. This is a significant accomplishment for a resident without any formal authority in the 5th largest school district in the country. I think Jim would be the first to say that he learned a lot, and there was no way he could do it without being nimble. Finally, Jim is grounded in family, friends, and faith. I remember when I first saw him on campus after he was accepted into the EDLD program. My wife and I were walking to get lunch at Harvard Square. As we walked through the door of the restaurant, Jim, his wife, his son, they were there early, getting the lay of the land, preparing to make a go for it. From Atlanta to Cambridge. That snapshot of the three of them reminded me of my wife and sons when we did the same nearly 6 years before. Like his colleagues, Jim became quite a memorable fixture in C8 or C grade. When I asked for a few words about Jim from his colleagues, here's just a sample of what I received back. And I quote, "Jim, solid as a rock within our cohort. Jim consistently brings us together as a community to think, to laugh, to celebrate, to work through rough spots, and to remember exactly what makes us see great." I quote again, "Jim is a super smack talker when it comes to spades. His love of spades brings members of multiple cohorts together to play. If I'm not mistaken, Jim even found a way to weave it into his capstone defense, which he did. You're not mistaken. Make no mistake about it, Jim knows he did not make it to donning this robe by himself. Neither will he make it to the next level of leadership and impact alone. Therefore, he would like to call out the following individuals: his wife, Tamika, his son, Luke. Those are the two individuals I saw in the restaurant. His father, James Mercer Sr., his sister, Kelly and Beth, the Mercer family, the Kelly family, the Alexander family, the greatest leadership team he ever served on: Trisilla Weaver, Sonia Solomon, and Don Blackwell, the Henry County Middle School community in McDonough, Georgia. The amazing cohort 8, or C grade, and his very special heavenly angel, his mother, Lottie. Jim reminded me that her favorite song is "His eye is on the sparrow, and I know he's watching me." Jim, we're not only celebrating you, but she's celebrating you also. Please join me in celebrating Dr. James Mercer. Thank you.
Marielle Mercedes Novus. My name is Monica Higgins, and I am delighted to celebrate Marielle today. Marielle thanks her family, especially her magnificent grandmother, Alsacia, who inspires her everything. As well, she thanks Liz City, DJS, me, Karen Mapp, Paul Revel, and Drew Eccleston for their love and guidance these last 3 years. There's a quote in Marielle's capstone that captures a bit of her journey. It's a quote by scholar Hari Hahn, who wrote, "Democracy in America has never been a spectator sport." Indeed, Marielle has deftly pulled spectators off the sidelines and onto the field of education change during her time at Harvard. Marielle's passion for equity stems from her own experience as an immigrant from the Dominican Republic. As she told us, "I know firsthand what it's like to have people assume countless things about your intellectual ability because of your accent, the color of your skin, or nationality. And I cannot help but be committed to achieving equity for all our children, particularly those who are often left behind by our schools." Marielle began with this self-description and has ended her time at Harvard a movement builder. For her residency work, Marielle joined the Massachusetts Education Equity Partnership, or MEEP, that is part of the Education Trust, builds collective power among stakeholders to influence policymakers. What happened through Marielle's leadership was something quite spectacular. Yes, Marielle organized people. Yes, she brought people who had been spectators out onto the playing field. But also, she and her residency supervisor, Natasha Ushamirski, and the coalition they built together influenced key legislators here in Boston, which led to the passage of the Student Opportunity Act in 2019, and so much more. This was not just a change project. This was a social movement. And during her capstone defense, we all knew it too. People literally had to turn off their videos to wipe away their tears of joy. You see, Marielle has this knack for not only orchestrating and organizing change, she understands what's at the crux of the matter, which is relationship. What scholar Carl Weick would call the double interact. So just one more reference for you, Marielle, since you like to nerd out, I know. The double interact refers to the sense-making and trust-building that goes on at the micro level through relationships, especially during times of ambiguity. And that is so key to driving change. Even during this pandemic, even during her own hurt and pain, Marielle understands this and has healed us all by drawing us all together. As she wrote in a recent email to her cohort, in the last 24 to 36 hours, I've realized that I'm more mentally prepared for this moment than I had realized, that I find myself having ideas that could help. And I realize that there's a place for me in this, which means there's a place for us. This is true, Marielle, being vulnerable with us, digging deep, pulling us off the sidelines and onto the playing field as co-creators of change, no spectators. Thank you for leading us onto the field with you, Marielle. As you yourself said, people power is the bomb this country seeks and the protective force our students need. Education advocates are the central actors that can facilitate the movement to reverse social and educational injustice. Congratulations, Dr. Marielle Novus.
David Bais, as I reflected on you, a series of snapshots popped into my head, each of them conveying a different aspect of who you are as a leader and a learner. So, to celebrate you, I'm going to share just 4 of these images today. The first is of you sitting in my office tucked away in the 4th floor of Gutman in September of 2017. It's our first real conversation, and I'm marveling at the amount of experience that you've brought to the EDLD program. You're telling me stories of what it was like to be a founding teacher and eventually principal of Global Tech Prep Middle School in East Harlem, New York. Your voice is quiet and your face is serene, but behind your eyes, I can see an intense fire burning. Your passion for education generally, and for the very specific students and educators that you came to know and love at Global Tech, leaves me feeling so grateful that I can be your faculty advisor. The second picture is of you standing at the podium in Asquith Forum in September of 2018. You're introducing the next speakers at the EDLD network convening, and you have thought carefully about your remarks. I cannot remember now who the actual speakers were, but your introduction is still with me. You spoke of education leadership as akin to tending a garden, and you challenged your listeners to look deeply at the current practice of leaders coming into new roles and feeling compelled to yank out every single plant that the previous gardener had put in place. You asked that leaders instead find the humility to think about first what would be best to serve the children and the communities before doing the easier thing of plowing under a pre-existing gardener's work. You found your voice that day, and I've been inspired every time I have heard you use it since. The third picture is of you in the winter of 2019 in our DataWise coaching class. Your equity workshop pod is meeting, and you've taken the market in your hand and you are ready to chart your group's ideas. As I'm looking over, I am so grateful that you joined the DataWise family and that you share our commitment to supporting educators and collaborating so that each and every student thrives. I've seen you in action, coaching school teams and using DataWise from around the country, and I realize that because of your deep understanding of what leading for educational equity really looks like, DataWise will never be the same again. The final picture is the one that I emailed you right after your defense this May. It's the Zoom screenshot that I took at the very end, after you had completed a brilliant recounting of your leadership journey as a resident in the College Board. Your capstone, which was entitled The Speed of Moore's Law, Elevating the Value of Civics and Computer Science Education, told the story of your leadership of initiative designed to prepare high school students with the skills that they need to be successful citizens. Over the course of your residency, you helped to bring to a national scale the vision that had animated your work at Global Tech. So, in one sense, what I see in this snapshot is David, the system-level leader, who has grown into the identity that he aspired to in our first meeting in my office many years ago. But unmistakable in this photo, which, as I said, was taken after the defense was complete and we were in celebration mode, is that the frame also includes your husband, Michael, wearing a big smile, and your amazing son, Reese, who is reveling in the loving warmth of your New York home, oblivious to the fact that his dad has just become Dr. Bais. David, congratulations. I cherish these snapshots of your doctoral experience, and I look forward to continuing to appreciate and learn from your leadership and your deep humanity in the years to come.
I have the distinct honor of speaking about my esteemed colleague and dear friend, Dia Nicole Bryant. Now, when I found out I was going to be tasked with speaking about Dia, I thought to myself, oh boy, she's going to get it. I have so many good stories to tell. And then my wife reminded me that this was in fact not a roast, but an opportunity to share with you all of the wonderful things that those of us who are close to Dia already know about her. That is, she's a fierce leader and a great friend. To understand what makes Dia so special, you have to start by understanding where Dia is from. Dia grew up in Detroit. Things weren't always easy for Dia or for her family. But regardless of whatever obstacles Dia faced, she conquered them. Those of us who know Dia know about her grit, her perseverance, her fierce intellect, and the fact that she's a fighter. I'm going to tell you about when I first realized just how special Dia was, and that was when I learned about the school she founded, Vista Academy in East New York. She threw her whole self into that school, making sure the least of those were given the most opportunity. And hearing about the impact she had on those educators and those children showed me the power that she has as an individual. And those two things are true of Dia wherever she goes. She throws her whole self into things, and she makes an impact. That's exactly what she's done at Harvard. And Cambridge hasn't always been an easy place. It takes some getting used to, particularly if you lived in Brooklyn for the last 10 years. And especially if you cherish the freedom to wear your hair how you feel, and you've been known to come through sporting bright blazers and Doc Martens. I also know that she and Kevin had to make a lot of sacrifices to make this happen, and that wasn't always easy. But in true Dia fashion, she made the most of her Harvard experience, serving as a faculty assistant, being awarded the Rides Fellowship, traveling to South Africa to learn about their school system, and returning to the New York City DOE as a special assistant to First Deputy Chancellor Cheryl Watson Harris, where she launched academic response teams that impacted tens of thousands of students in just the 10 months she was there. One of the things her cohort mates learned quickly about Dia was that she was all about business and had little tolerance for foolishness. She used to arrive to every class 10 minutes early, dressed professionally, and ready to take notes. There's not a single person in this cohort who is not sure that Dia is going to live up to the Hugsy motto and change the world. She's already off to a great start as the Deputy Director of the Education Trust in New York. I'll close with this. One of the biggest privileges for me and my wife Vanessa and daughter Zoe has been getting to know not just Dia, but her whole family. We were blown away by the power of the example of a wife and her husband, both attaining doctorates from Harvard. And I think to myself how powerful it is that Dia's daughter Corey and her son Kinsley have been able to watch her earn her doctorate. I can't wait to see what the future holds for this special family and this special person. Please join me in congratulating the incomparable Dr. Dia Nicole Bryant.
One of the privileges of working with EDLD students is that they are the ideal ed school student. They are professionals who've been at work in schools and who will return to that work. They bring knowledge of public schooling, commitment to its improvement, and determination to work for justice. Adriana Lopez is an excellent case in point. She was a thoughtful and accomplished student in the school systems course that I teach. She did so well that I asked her to TF the course the following year. She did a terrific job improving the course and managing it and me. As I observed her work during her residency, I saw an accomplished professional who knew how to promote ambitious change and social justice with clear-eyed analysis, diplomatic tact, and determination. And she was an intentional and thoughtful learner. The world changed during Adriana's residency. It is much more troubled and difficult. Public education faces its greatest challenges in many decades, perhaps ever. It is a credit to Adriana and to HGSE that she has the skills, knowledge, and values that will be needed if public education is to meet those challenges.
To tell the truth, I was secretly hoping that Rebecca would invite me to speak for her today. And then my wish came true, and now I have so much to say and so little time to salute a person who's become not just a colleague, but a good friend of mine. Rebecca is joined today by her parents, Joanne and Brian, her husband, Corey, sisters Catherine, Jessica, and Sarah, and best friend, Monica. How proud you must all be, not only of what Rebecca has achieved, but who she is and how she shows up in this world. Rebecca began her career by serving for a decade as a high school science teacher in Colorado Springs, a diverse community where she was recognized as a distinguished teacher and a Hall of Fame alumna. From there, she moved to the prestigious Institute for Learning at the University of Pittsburgh, where she led professional development and curriculum initiatives for teachers and leaders. After Pittsburgh, she came to EDLD to use her strengths as a practitioner, a curriculum specialist, and a talent developer to build, with the help of Harvard, the next stage of her career. She approached this work with a clear philosophy. Quote, I believe the role of teachers is not to save, but to be partners in providing opportunities that support self and community empowerment, unquote. I first met Rebecca when she was a member of my Leading with a Board class in her first year of EDLD. I observed her to be a thoughtful, if reserved student, projecting a perceptive intelligence, making interesting comments, and generating an aura of equanimity and positive energy. One day I discovered that Rebecca had attended my beloved alma mater, Colorado College. At a break in the next class, I mentioned this to her, and thus began a special relationship. Our first conversation started on the topic of Colorado Springs, her home and the home of Colorado College. That quickly took us to the then current movie Black Klansman, which featured depictions of Colorado Springs and Pittsburgh, cities that were dear to both of us, while raising complex racial issues. The conversation blossomed as we shared interest in so many things, especially readings, movie, television series, and the agonies of current events. We had many serious professional topics to cover in our meetings, but the challenge was always time. We spent most of each hour discussing our favorite shows and books or commiserating over the state of the nation. I look forward to these conversations and engaging with such a keen observer, clear analyst, and caring soul. Eventually, we did get around to the serious intellectual business of EDLD. Rebecca became my teaching fellow in A125, a policy course, which was brave on her part because she wasn't a policy person, but was committed to learning about policy while being a superbly organized partner in helping me to build a better course. And the students loved her. Rebecca chose to do her residency in Somerville. I followed her work closely and learned from my friend, Superintendent Mary Skipper, how much she appreciated Rebecca and valued her thought partnership. Rebecca's charge was to extend and deepen path-breaking equity work pioneered by former EDLDer Jess Davis. Rebecca's work on using data for achieving equity was a masterful exercise in intellectual provocation and diplomacy. She challenged district leaders to think differently about sensitive topics like racial categorization, the implications of oversimplified approaches to labeling students' identity. She pushed them to envision the use of how the use of data might evolve over time as a platform for a sequential attack on the sources and symptoms of inequity. As a thought leader, a superb listener, and a role model, she was an extraordinary change agent whose work will have a lasting impact on a district trying to do the right things but struggling against history and bias. So as you can tell, I will miss this standout student and sparkling human being. She assures me that she'll stay in touch, that we'll stay in touch, and I'll count on that, my friend. But more importantly, I will follow you with great interest, as I know you're just in the early stages of your ascent to positions of influence and power in our sector. I wish you a successful journey, Rebecca. And oh, by the way, do you think they'll bring back another season of Game of Thrones?
Claire is fierce in her commitment to multilingual learners, in her commitment to learning, and in her vulnerability. This might not be immediately apparent because Claire tends to think and listen more than she talks, but that only makes her ferocity the more potent. While at Harvard, Claire did many important things, perhaps the most important of which was, with her husband Jorge, bringing their son Oscar a brother, Maximo. I hope they are listening. Oscar y Máximo, quiero que sepan que su mamá es una madre con orgullo de su familia y de ser su mamá, además de ser una líder increíble que ayuda a los niños a aprender. Ella es muchas otras cosas también. Esto lo sabrán a tiempo. I want you to know that your mama is so proud of her family and proud to be your mother. She's also an amazing leader who helps children learn. She has many other things as well. This you will come to know in time. Claire brings deep expertise in literacy, both for children who speak English at home and those who speak other languages at home. The millions of children who speak other languages at home are often cited in statistics about failure. But Claire knows that these statistics reflect our failure as an educational system to serve these learners well. She always starts from a place of understanding and honoring the amazing wonder and strength it is to speak more than one language. These days, I'm leading an initiative on early literacy, a topic about which Claire knows muchísimas más que I do. And we've had many a conversation about literacy. But as she was heading off into residency, Claire really was hoping to get a little bit away from literacy. She wanted to stretch out, not be seen as the literacy lady or the ELL expert. And she wanted to broaden and branch out her leadership and try new things. So she went off to the Texas Education Agency, initially to do work in early childhood. Quickly, however, she returned to literacy. Why? Because there was great need there. And for Claire, it's not about her, it's about the work. So she got to work. The Texas state legislature had just passed some legislation mandating that every teacher in Texas who teaches children in kindergarten through third grade learn better how to teach reading and how to develop early literacy. Now, Claire knew from previous experiences that multilingual learners are often considered at the end of such a process, not the beginning. And she was determined that this time it would be different, not only in what happened, but how it happened. So she led a cross-department team, and by cross-department, I mean across the whole agency, people who are not used to working together, and did that within an ambitious, legally mandated timeline. So Claire was committed to learning along the way, and by the end of her residency, she and her colleagues had produced a set of modules that over 120,000 teachers in Texas, serving millions and millions of students, are going to be taking as soon as this summer. And those teachers are going to be better at serving multilingual learners. And they even have an option for a biliteracy pathway that was added after Claire got feedback from the field that this is what we need. So she and her colleagues scrambled to make that happen. That is impact. One of the quotes Claire cites in her capstone is from a colleague who remarked, who was initially skeptical, but then remarked about how positive he felt about the whole process. And Claire included this to show how people had really changed their mindsets in working with her. What struck me about the quote, though, was not what it said so much as that it was in Spanish. And what struck me was that here was somebody who hadn't really wanted to engage in this process, but who trusted Claire enough to speak in his language of power and to tell her how much he valued what she was doing. He became a huge champion of the work. I think that's impact too. I'm going to end with a quote for Claire. These words come from Antonio Machado. Caminante no hay camino, se hace camino al andar. Walker, there is no path, you make it as you walk. Congratulations, Dr. Hagan Alvarado. Continue to make the path for yourself and for the millions of learners you are already serving and will serve.
It is my honor to recognize Tyler Hester for this robing ceremony. I have been known to pose a question at the opening of some of my recognitions for robing ceremonies. So I would like to pose the following question as I reflect on Tyler Hester. How do you lead when you're fueled by the belief that every child is made in the image of God and has infinite worth and potential? In my view, this is a question that has been driving Tyler for years, including the time before he came to Harvard Graduate School of Education. Prior to arriving here on Appian Way 3 years ago, Tyler had spent the past decade as a teacher coach, an education advocate, and as the leader of Teach for America in Richmond, California. Over time, he has been guided by his belief in the central importance of trusting relationships in facilitating educational progress. So how does he answer that earlier question? Well, for one, he would arrive on campus as an author of a book. Not just any book, but a book that was inspired by the challenging experiences that he had endured as a first-year teacher. But he did not stop at pining over those travails, but he turned them into a handbook of strategies, plans, and processes for helping first-year teachers not just survive, but thrive. In my sector change course, he would move that book from words on paper to a cohort of more than 50 first-year teachers from Boston Public Schools who would come together during an entire year to support and learn and grow. This was while he was a student here. He would not stop there. During his residency in Stockton, California, he worked side by side with one of my mentors, Dr. John Dacey, to design and launch a program within Stockton Unified School District to provide educators with the support that enables them to achieve a greater degree of well-being, resist burnout, and stay in the profession longer than they might have otherwise. The program consisted of 12 sessions that enabled teachers to learn about and practice strategies empirically proven to increase well-being and instructional practice. And going forward, Tyler is clear-eyed about positioning himself to be a superintendent, a system leader one day. And he's committed to taking the steps, no matter how unconventional they be, to positioning himself for impact. What these efforts of the past 3 years illustrate is Tyler's commitment to not only seek answers to that earlier question, but to seek impact in the process. These are not just my sentiments, but when I ask for reflections from his cohort, see, great, these are some of the nuggets that I got. And I quote, "Every single time I have had a conversation with Tyler, he has helped me to have a little more faith in myself and to believe just a little bit more that I am capable and talented." Another quote, "Color coding your Outlook calendar is a super life skill." Final quote, "Tyler will move mountains because he believes they must be moved." In closing, I return to my original question. How do you lead when you're fueled by the belief that every child is made in the image of God and has infinite worth and potential? For Tyler, the answer might be surprisingly simple. And I quote Tyler's own words here. For education to realize its full potential, it's not enough to rely on teachers to love and do right by their students. In addition, we adults must love and do right by one another. From the classroom to the schoolhouse, to the central office to the state, this is truth, and it's enduring." End quote. When I asked Tyler for a person or persons to thank, Tyler stated, and I quote, "The person I'd love to call out is my mom. My dad passed away when I was 7, and she resolved that my sister and I wouldn't be harmed more than could already be expected. She then poured into us more than a son could ever hope for." End quote. Please help me recognize and celebrate Dr. Tyler Hester.
We're here to celebrate our students, and I'm here particularly to celebrate Lance Hoffman. And what a student to celebrate. What a man. Every once in a while we get a student in our classes that changes the way we approach things, changes the hopes that we have and the intentions that we have. And Lance, who studied with me for 2 semesters and who I had the honor of serving as a reader on his thesis, was that kind of student. This is a person who our education system deeply, badly needs. He has done all kinds of work. He has been at every level of this education system. He has always put everything that he has had into it. And when he was here serving his learning, there wasn't a moment that he didn't place all of his intention, all of his strength behind his own learning and then the learning of others. He came to me saying that I had told him that I will teach him to be uncomfortable in situations where he needs to be uncomfortable. Say places where he has a leadership position, where all the community that surround him don't look like him. And he wanted this. And I don't know if I provide him with much more than just the environment to exercise that, because this man is so clear in his purpose. He's so deeply rooted in wanting to serve people that he just moved, and with that he moved other people. Every student who came in touch with him, who heard him speak, who had a one-on-one conversation with him, was grateful. And frankly, I'm grateful to have had the opportunity to work with this man. Lance, I also want to say that I know that probably your family and friends are here with you. I'm thinking of Heidi, who you mentioned so regularly. I'm thinking of the friends you bring up in conversation. I hope they're there with you, if not in digital form, in spirit, and that they know that who you are depends on them, and that the same way that you have supported all of your classmates, all of your professors, even at Harvard, that they should continue to support you because you matter. The work that you do matters. And I'm sure that as you go from positions of authority to authority, from positions of responsibility to more responsibility, their support for you is what's going to sustain you. It was an honor. It was really an honor to work with you. Please keep in touch. Keep in touch with all of these people who surround you now on this day. They will want to hear from you.
Stefan is quite an intellectual. In fact, he's one of the most intellectual people I know. He likes to synthesize a large amount of information, turn it into an outline, and from that turn out a usually publishable, if quite lengthy, paper. I learned this in the final paper for a class he was taking in his first semester that I was teaching. The paper, the draft anyway, was titled School Reform in New Orleans Since Hurricane Katrina: The Delicate Untold Story. And in the margin, Stefan had written, "This is a terrible title, rethink." And I think it's a great title because it tells us a lot about Stefan. He always has this kind of meta thing going where he's thinking about how can I make this better and holds himself to really high standards. He also wanted to tell the story. He had just come from leading Langston Hughes Academy, where he had spent 10 years as an educator, and he wanted to get perspective on his own experience as well as a variety of perspectives. He wanted to tell what he called the middle of the road, non-dogmatic story close to the ground. I think Stefan really thrives in delicate, untold spaces. So because he has a lot to say in writing usually, he and I had a running joke about his capstone and how long was his capstone going to be? Could he keep it under 100 pages? So when he told me that he wanted to add a new section and he was going to call it a premise, I was skeptical. I thought it was a ploy just to have something not count in the official page count. But that was not it. It was important because there was, in fact, a story before the story. And that story before the story was about his grandfather. Grandpa to Stefan, also known as Lawyer Redding, to many people in Delaware, where Stefan's grandfather worked as the only Black lawyer in the whole state for over 25 years. Oh, and by the way, Grandpa Redding was one of the first African-American men to graduate from Harvard Law School. So Lawyer Redding won 2 cases on desegregation that eventually became part of Brown versus Board of Education, the most famous Supreme Court case, and he and his colleagues won, which laid the way in 1954 for desegregation. And now that has turned into Stefan's commitment to integration, which Stefan describes as a lifelong personal and professional pursuit. That pursuit took him to New Orleans. It brought him to Harvard. In his essay for his application, he wrote, "I plan to use the experiences and skills gained in the EDLD program to pick up where my grandfather's legal career left off and lead a major integration effort in a large public school district." Well, he tried to learn what he could about that while he was at Harvard and got engaged in various integration work. And then he went off to a large public school district to work on integration, which is New York City, the largest school system in the country, serving over 1 million children. That journey in New York had all sorts of interesting and exciting elements to it, the most exciting of which was the birth of his daughter Zoe. And though Stefan will be the first to tell you that Vanessa did all the hard work, you could not have a more joyful, proud papa than Stefan has been every time I've talked with him this year. Meanwhile, however, he also was doing some extraordinary work around integration. He was attracted to New York City because they were serious about integration. There was an advisory group that put out 95 recommendations about how to move integration forward in New York City. And Stefan's task was simply to make those happen. Well, New York City is an incredibly political and challenging media space. But then you put a hot button issue like integration in, and you're going to get headline after headline and many challenges. Stefan, however, was a very deft leader and managed with his colleagues to get over half of those 95 things either already accomplished or on their way to being accomplished, even in that very challenging environment. He, by all accounts, combined his intellectual and his interpersonal skills and showed that he is not just a thinker, but also a doer. So in his capstone defense, his Aunt Judy heard all of this and then asked an excellent question that I want to quote. She said, "You sound very hopeful. Why are you hopeful, given that integration has not been achieved in over 100 years? And Stefan said, well, it's because of the passion and commitment of young people, the commitment and hard work of the people I was working with. I know there are people working on this, and it just has to happen if our democracy is going to thrive. So to continue that work, he's headed off into a role at the Century Foundation. And I just want to say, congratulations, Dr. Lallinger. I too am optimistic about integration. Stefan, you are certainly picking up where your grandfather left off. The reason I'm hopeful about integration is because you are leading the way. Congratulations.
I am pleased to share a few words to honor the achievements of someone I hold in very high esteem, Dr. Bonnie Lowe. Yuri Kachiyama, civil rights activist and founder of Asian Americans for Action, said, "Consciousness is power, is education and knowledge, and is becoming aware." Bonnie, you arrived at HGSE fiercely determined that the world that you would hand over to our young people would be far different than the one you inherited. You are an equity warrior who leads with strong faith without proselytizing, who ensures rigorous instructional practice without dogma, and who demonstrates that wisdom and servant leadership can beautifully and impactfully coexist to better serve students and families. I, along with committee members Professor Irvin Scott and Dr. John Dacey, have come to appreciate the many skills you possess, but we acknowledge that these attributes come in large measure from those who prepared a path for you. And to honor them on your behalf, I share your love and eternal gratitude to your father, Reverend Dr. Samuel Lowe, your mother, Helen Lowe, your siblings, along with other family members and friends, all of whom have supported you on this journey. In your daily walk through the corridors of Harvard, and certainly in your leadership in Stockton, you exhibited a quiet fire. For peacocks struck because they can't fly, but you, dear Bonnie, you are an eagle, soaring and leading teams of fellow administrators and community members to new ways of thinking, of being, and of doing. Certainly, Stockton Unified was in need of the type of leadership you exhibit, for in a truly dire way, the district needs to create the conditions for academic, social, and emotional success for its children and youth, so many of whom have traditionally been underserved. Like educator Dr. Beverly Tatum, you viewed these entrenched inequities as stereotypes and distortions that surrounded the district like smog in the air that for generations people breathed because they thought it was the only air available. Dismantling and markedly improving, in essence, the very air breathed was no easy task, but you readily accepted the challenge of finding a way to imbue collaboration into the fabric of the district. And through your whole Child Bridge strategic project, you sought to clear the smog of entrenched, unaligned systems that for so long resulted in poor student outcomes and the perpetuation of unrealized hopes and dreams. In Stockton, Dr. Dacey and you dealt with the complicated challenge of high aims and new strong leadership facing off against broken systems and entrenched political opposition. Yet you did so with a compassionate spirit, and by so doing, you charted a vista of hope for the possible in a district where hope was a dying ember. In your work, you changed people so that they could change systems. You made the invisible visible by engaging people's hands, hearts, and minds, and by so doing, you showed that equitable change is possible. You are to be commended for all that you have done, Dr. Bonnie, and I, along with the many others who love and admire you, wait with bated breath to see what you will accomplish in the future.
Yasmine, thank you for asking me to offer these words. I'm so grateful to Gary for connecting us many moons ago. As you know, your capstone committee gathered recently, and as we sang your praises in that virtual room, it was almost like a call and response about you and your work in the world. Yasmine, transformational leader, organizer, educator, artist. Maybe if you were there, you would have quoted Tony K. Bambara back to us. The role of the artist is to make the revolution irresistible. Yasmine, it has been an honor to learn from you. Your quiet discernment is a lesson for us all. Thank you for the opportunity to teach together, to witness the ways you embody transformative justice, the ways you are a gift to so many students. Thank you for your collaboration to bring Turnaround Tuesday to Radcliffe. Your leadership with the Build seminar was inspiring. When you command a room, you do it with integrity, and as a result, more people secure living wage jobs. So thank you for shining like you do, with quiet power and resounding voice. And thank you for listening the way you do. It is rare, and that is why people flock to you, willing to share their stories, because you listen. So you call others to do the same, to pay attention to what matters. Dr. Yasmine, Mumby, Baltimore in the bones. You know I gotta go out with Bill Withers for you and all the EDLD graduates.
I am so honored to speak on behalf of Adam Peretz, who in turn would like me to thank DJS, Jen Cheatham, Edie Sharp, and of course, Chelsea. In searching for a word to describe your leadership, Adam, the first thing that came to mind was that you were a manifester. You just make things that didn't used to exist come into being. I was actually concerned that maybe I had made up that word, but when I looked it up, I discovered it was indeed a thing. In fact, a few years back, there was a blog post in the Huffington Post that contained 10 tips about how to become a powerful manifester. I didn't even read the post because just by watching you manifest your hopes and dreams, and sometimes mine too, I feel that you've given me private lessons in how to bring ideas to life. You've shown me that to be a manifester, one needs to think big, engage others, and build to last. Let's start with thinking big. So when I first saw your resume, I realized that you had been thinking big for many years before joining the EDLD program. You came to us with an impressive track record as an award-winning principal and district administrator for early childhood and English language learners. And you already had deep experience in strategy and network development. And when you came to HGSE, you just embraced all that we had to offer, and I, in turn, embraced you. When I learned of your deep professional experience, I asked if you'd be interested in providing strategy advice to the DataWise project and helping us achieve our mission of supporting educators in building more equitable schools around the world. You said yes, and for the next 2 years, I felt like you taught me just what thinking big looks like. You helped me see the need to rethink the purpose and the membership of the DataWise Advisory Board, and you challenged us to be bold and clear in our aspirations for what we are trying to achieve. You challenged us to think about all the dimensions of scale, not just spread or depth or sustainability, but also shift and evolution as the program would grow in response to what was happening in the field. With your guidance, we are now poised to begin to measure what truly matters on a large number of dimensions. The next tip I learned from you about how to become a manifester is engage others. In your role as the social media guru for DataWise, you vastly increased our Twitter followers and helped us reconceive of social media as a way of giving voice to a wide range of educators. But for me, your most shining moment in engaging others came around your leadership of a new podcast. When you first told me that you and your cohort 8 colleagues were going to launch your own podcast, I knew better than to doubt that a manifester like you could make it happen. But what I came to see was how intentionally you used the podcast, which you guys cleverly named Pedagogy of the Obsessed, to engage not just a broad range of folks from your own cohort, but also to really and honestly reach out to the field. In your first year, I came to love the days in my commute when I'd be hurtling down Route 2 toward campus, listening to the many voices that you had engaged in thinking about what is really needed to transform education. And the final manifester mantra, build to last. You did your residency in the New York City Department of Education. Did I mention that Adam thinks big? In your doctoral capstone entitled Intractable Conflict, Adaptable Teams, you described your work in supporting 2 agencies with very different cultures to come to agreement about how to best serve students with disabilities preparing for high school equivalency. I was blown away at your defense, not just by how effectively your leadership was able to bring about real change in New York, but also by your determination to codify the work that you had done. You include as an appendix to your capstone your protocol for thinking through how to build and lead and even dismantle teams. And I encourage everyone listening to this tribute to check out this lasting contribution that Adam has made in building to last. Adam, you've spent your life working to manifest good ideas in service of children. I wish you well, Dr. Peretz, as you go out into the world to continue doing that at scale.
I am honored to present Dr. Shanna Peeples. Shanna wants to thank her partner Diane Farrington Curtis and their children Riley, Savannah, and Emma. I want to thank Karen Mapp and Carissa Miller for their support and guidance of Shanna on her committee. Shanna is one of my favorite people at Harvard. I think it's the mixture of her many talents and her humility about those talents. Even in her own head, I think she's not quite fully aware of all that she's bringing to the table. Shanna came to us as the National Teacher of the Year, replete with a commendation and a hug from Barack Obama, but I always think of her simply as the question lady. During her time with us, she authored a book, Think Like Socrates, which emphasized the power of questions. Shanna tells the story of how she began. As she puts it, she was teaching middle school in a high poverty neighborhood and was convinced that she had, quote, the meanest 12-year-olds in the school. They hated me, each other, the school, and seemingly life itself. But then she remembered that it was hard to be 12, quote, too big to be little and too little to be big. And, wondering what was going on inside their heads, she asked them to anonymously share their questions. And when they did, their questions were, why do people ignore the truth? Can peace really exist in this world? And how come love never lasts? How come there is always pain in love? And from there she was off, tapping into one of the most profound truths about education, that once the learner starts asking questions, you are 3/4 of the way there. Questions have implications for leadership too. Recently I've been reading books by Edgar Schein, MIT Professor Emeritus and the world's leading expert on organizational culture. In his retirement, he's been reflecting on the best leaders he has worked with over his long life, and the books he's authored are called things like Humble Leadership and Humble Inquiry. People almost never respond to being told what to do, he says, but asking just the right question at just the right moment can unlock things and help people and organizations move in new and powerful directions. We saw this in action during Shanna's residency at the Council of Chief State School Officers. In some ways, it was a rocky year. The organization lost a significant chunk of its funding, there was leadership turnover, and then COVID-19 hit, and thus Shanna wasn't able to quite complete her ambitious project, an effort to help the organization develop its narrative and align its activities with its visions. But what Shanna, with her characteristic high standards, was viewing as a failure to deliver a product, her supervisor, CCSSO Executive Director Carissa Miller, was emphasizing what she had done for the organizations. The questions Shanna had asked had pushed everyone in the organization to ask harder questions, to see adaptive as well as technical challenges, to think about adult development and immunity to change. And these questions, Carissa said, were more powerful than any product she could produce. Not surprisingly, Shanna's final recommendation to the organization was that they hire a, quote, Chief Learning Officer, which I see as a fancy way of saying that they needed a permanent question lady. The future lies with the curious, and Shanna is the leader of that pack. I hope she never stops asking hard questions and pushing everyone who is around her to do the same. Congratulations, Dr. Shanna Peeples.
The first thing to know about Carrie is that she is innovative. We use this word a lot, but I really mean it. She's one of the most innovative people you will ever meet. She sees challenges and obstacles as invitations to get creative. This is part of why she's so well suited to work both inside and outside of systems and bureaucracies. She's forever starting things, both before she got here and while she was at Harvard. I soon learned to stop asking her what she was up to or to try to keep track of it, because all I would get is a kind of, well, that shrug and that well was Carrie code for, well, there's a lot going on, but we don't need to get into all of it. So when it came time for residency, the question was, what was going to be a great leadership development experience for Carrie, who'd had a lot of experience doing different things? And it turned out that Tulane University in New Orleans, Louisiana, wanted to reimagine educator preparation. Those are like magic words to Carrie. She's very interested in reimagining, and she's been working on educator preparation for a lot of time, both before and during her time at Harvard. So Carrie worked really hard to collaborate both with people at Tulane and people on the ground in New Orleans to understand what were the needs that any educator preparation program needed to serve. Now, you kind of have to read the fine print and the appendices of her capstone to understand what all the things that Carrie accomplished while she was there. She was named director because they needed her leadership. And oh, by the way, she put together a whole strategic plan that was supported by the administration that had 11 different pathways and programs, some of which she launched while she was there. And it was kind of actually hard to figure out what she would focus on in her capstone because she had done so many things. She decided to focus her capstone on the special education certification pathway that she had, with other people, an advisory group she put together, helped get rolling. Now, in higher education, usually it would take, a few years to think of things and get approval and start planning them. Not with Carrie. That program is launching this summer, and very soon children in New Orleans will be better served as a result. And part of what Carrie included in her strategic plan, which was subtitled Audacious for Kids, were a proposed set of core values. And it struck me as I read them that they sounded a lot like Carrie's core values. Like all great leaders, her core values and her organization's values have a lot of things in common. I'm going to read you these core values because I think they tell you a lot about Carrie. There's 4 of them: equity and social justice, bending the arc, working with, not for. The power of educators, great power brings great responsibility. Never stop learning, ask and cultivate beautiful questions. And students first, keep students at the center. Carrie lives these values at home with her husband, Brian, and with their amazing son, Sam, and she lives them in her work every day. Dr. Randolph, I congratulate you. I offer you one piece of advice as you return with that doctorate to your Southern roots. Let people call you doctor if they want to. You're probably going to want them to call you Carrie, and they're probably not going to want to. And my advice is accept their respect. And as I'm guessing DJS would tell you, it's not a bad idea to have that title doctor when you're an equity warrior in the South. I'm going to close reflecting the words you chose in your capstone back to you. This is your quote by Miles Horton. And he says, you have to build a program that will deal with things as they are now and as they ought to be at the same time. They go together, the is and the ought. Some people do all what ought to be, and others do all what is. But what you've got to do to be effective is the is and the ought at the same time. That's you, Dr. Randolph. You live the is and the ought at the same time, and I can't wait to see how you help other people be as audacious for kids as you are. Congratulations, Carrie.
My first memory of you, Sinn, was in the basement of Gutman. You at the podium, me listening to your story of self, us, and now. You described an injustice your mother suffered as a consequence of her identity. You exuded passion and purpose as you shared what drives you to be on an equity mission and what brought you to the EDLD program. And I remember saying to myself, you go, girl. And that you did. I have watched you blossom over the last 3 years into one of the most articulate advocates for and practitioners of creating school cultures that support adult development so all students can learn. You've learned how to walk the talk of being a reflective practitioner, and you've learned how to take genuine care of yourself so that you can endure the stressful, deeply emotional work of tackling systemic injustices in school systems. You've done all this drawing on your extraordinary strengths, the most obvious being your ability to build strong, deep, trusting relationships and community through your authenticity and your capacity to put theory and concepts into practice. I saw that firsthand when you TF'd my class. I know students found the structure of your sessions and your authenticity invaluable. By the way, when I did a word cloud of your teaching fellow assessments, rock star, vulnerability, authenticity were the 3 most frequent words. You took these strengths, along with your mission to tackle inequities in school systems and your understanding of deliberately developmental organizations, to Community School District 11 in the Bronx for your residency. Notably, that's where you had attended K-12. Your supervisor there, District Superintendent Vaughn, shared with me her glowing assessment of your contributions. She noted your commitment to equity, giving back to the community, and making a difference in the lives of underserved students. Your openness to always seeking and taking feedback to improve your leadership. Your calm and supportive stance when working with new leaders, your ability to gain their trust, and your focus on sharing wellness strategies and underscoring the need for administrators to develop self-care routines. Your capstone presentation showcased your strengths and growth. You began with a Puerto Rican song and then shared with passion your purpose-driven work in a clear, coherent, structured way while building community amongst your listeners as you model vulnerability in real time. I was deeply moved by you and your presentation and felt honored to be in your company. Judging from the comments in the chat box, so did others. Finally, may the shadows of your own earlier K-12 experiences be sources for your continued leadership growth as an equity warrior. You go, Dr. Mercer! Congratulations.
Ray Fleck. I'm Monica Higgins, and the entire EDLD family congratulate you on all your accomplishments at Harvard. Ray thanks his whole family for their support, especially his wife, Jan, and their adorable baby boy, Max, who Ray says is objectively the cutest and very best kid of all time. Ray also thanks his cohort, his true community, and residency director and committee member Drew Eccleston, along with Liz City, EDLD program director, when he began at Harvard. I first got to know Ray as his advisor and teacher. When I think back to the early days with Ray as a student in my leadership class, I remember exactly where Ray sat. Front ground floor level, left of center in a swivel chair. Not in the back row, what we'd call the sky deck, nor in the very front row or worm deck, but in the garden deck. A perfect spot for Ray. He could spin around in his chair and roll on over to another spot for a new perspective. I reflect on this image because along with his ability to listen well, Ray has always struck me as an especially curious person. Yes, with a little bit of a not sure yet twinkle in his eye, but never as someone who had too much skepticism. It's been a healthy dose of, what do we have here, that has helped us all learn from Ray. As Ray said upon entering the program, I enjoy conversation and debate, coupled with honest, open consideration of others' viewpoints, and I'm willing to change my mind if presented with new evidence or ideas. This active curiosity was especially evident in his residency work with Boston Public Schools, where he helped examine the merits of school turnaround models to implement across the district. One of the real and rare gems of Ray's residency work was his ability to cross over and consider lessons learned from other fields, not just adjacent literatures, but from entirely different sectors. This was a sign of his curiosity and persistence in search of evidence. In Ray's residency work, he searched for answers in the field of business. As he wrote, the rare examples of successful corporate turnarounds may provide lessons for turnaround best practices that can be applied to school turnaround. I have reread that section of his capstone several times to glean both what does and what does not apply to education from Ray's excellent work. But Ray also understands the limits of over-reliance on evidence from afar. As he wrote, effective leaders must have a robust understanding of the current culture and norms of an organization or team first, before developing a strategy to shift it. This is huge for Ray, as it is for us all. In education, we often search for the magic bullet answer, even from other sectors. But as Ray knows well and has taught us all here at Harvard, that Even that evidence from other fields needs to be interrogated, adjusted, reconsidered, and tested. And that takes curiosity, something that Ray has along with many other gifts that have made him an excellent leader and will help him continue to grow and lead well beyond Harvard. Ray, it's been a true pleasure working with you, and we look forward to joining you in your garden deck or wherever you lead in your many years ahead. Congratulations, Dr. Ray Fleck.
Dr. Tim Sippel. I come to offer words of praise for Dr. Tim Sippel, someone whom I admired from our first meeting. From then to now, I have come to know well and appreciate greatly his quiet leadership, his caring persona, and his determination to change the ed sector as we know it. What I admire about you most, Tim, is that you propose to change the sector from a foundation of love. As Marianne Williamson, political activist and spiritual leader, stated, love is what we were born with. Fear is what we have learned here. Love is the essential, existential fact. It is our ultimate reality and our purpose on earth. To be consciously aware of it, to experience love in ourselves and others, is the real meaning of life. The wellspring of your love includes your mom and your dad, your brother, and all other family member, as well as friends and colleagues from your many work sites, Tim, including the Cambridge Public Schools. And the eternal giving fount of that joy and love are, without question, your lovely wife, Army, and your sons, Elijah and Isaiah, who traveled here with you and have accompanied you on every step of your Harvard journey. On your behalf, Tim, I acknowledge and thank them and add to the list of those you thank the other members of your capstone committee, Professor Marty West and Superintendent Dr. Kenny Salim. It was under the direction of Dr. Salim that you undertook your residency in the Cambridge Public Schools. And in so doing, you were able to capitalize on one of your gifts, which is your ability to find common ground between people who are different, who hold different beliefs, and who, as in this case, view the work to be done very differently. During your residency, you undertook the challenge of developing a systemic approach to the onboarding, training, and supporting of the newly hired math interventionists assigned to Cambridge elementary schools, and you utilized your strength as an instructional leader to build bridges among teachers, administrators, and schools in CPS. Work remains on this important initiative, but through your efforts, you've enabled the district to account for the variability in math teaching and identify the implications for that. And you've ensured that those most affected by the work will be moving together toward coherence and improvement in teaching and learning for all. And through this work, you've also enhanced your own leadership capacity to inculcate relational trust and to foster collaborative teaming across differences. As you go forth to your next role, Dr. Sippel, I know you will continue to fight to right pre-existing, long-standing wrongs, and I applaud your courageous stance. As Dr. Martin Luther King noted, a man dies when he refuses to stand up for what is right, when he refuses to stand up for justice, and when he refuses to take a stand for what is true. You are one of the people I know will stand up and be counted, and I exhort you to do so boldly, loudly, and relentlessly to eradicate those practices that make the angels weep. For to be indifferent to evil is worse than evil itself. And lead Tim with inspired fire to take that which is good in our best schools and ensure that it is replicated for the children and communities under your watch. You know that I'll be watching and cheering you on every step of the way.
It's an absolute joy to recognize our friend and colleague, Matt Smith. Matt came to Harvard Graduate School of Education an accomplished principal and educational leader, yet, as a result of his deep commitment to have an impact at scale, he became an open vessel for learning and receiving. And in doing so, he has made significant contributions to our Appian Way community, to his EDL community, C Great, as well as to the Birmingham, Alabama community. To begin with, Matt came to Harvard having been an accomplished educator. He was a high school social studies teacher, a district school improvement specialist, an assistant principal, and district social studies coordinator, as well as principal of Morrow Middle School in Morrow, Georgia. Along with the leadership that he exhibited prior to coming to Harvard, Matt has been a dedicated student as well as a teaching fellow for me here at Harvard Graduate School of Education. As his advisor, I have also had the pleasure to watch him evolve and grow as a learner, a leader, as well as a husband and a father. I have had the privilege of being Matt's instructor in 2 courses, and Matt was a teaching fellow with me in a course also. In the first course that I taught him in, entitled Sector Change, the students are immersed in coursework and experiences with the goal of becoming leaders who identify system-level problems and identify innovative and viable solutions with the potential to have scalable impact. Matt worked with a team of his colleagues to develop an innovative idea which would bridge the gap between schools and communities. Little did I know that this was a foreshadowing of the type of work that he would do during his residency in Birmingham Public Schools. In Birmingham Public Schools, Matt worked side by side with the superintendent, Dr. Lisa Herring, and her team to design, plan, and implement his capstone experience in his strategic project. His capstone explores how he approached the challenge of developing and implementing a statistical or STAT model of continuous improvement within Birmingham Public Schools. He relied on historical examples of effective STAT model implementations in school districts across the United States, as well as current research on improvement science, relational trust, and adaptive leadership. It was a powerful project. In conclusion, he provided recommendations to Birmingham on how they could leverage what was learned to continue to accelerate school turnaround. The work that Matt did in Birmingham, and I would venture to say the work that he's done throughout his career, has been made possible by his focus on teaming up with others. Here on Appian Way, Matt is a valued member of C Grade. The following are a few nuggets that I received when I asked other C graders about Matt. And I quote, "Matt's middle name is Lawrence. Nice to use his full name, Matthew Lawrence Smith, because otherwise his name can get a little lost in the other Matts and Smiths of the world." I quote again, "Matt loves composting. It took 2 years on campus for him to really get it, but he will never mindlessly dispose of another compostable cup, plate, or organic material again." I quote again, "Matt is a connector. He is the master of woo. He makes people feel valued." And I end quote. Like so many of his colleagues, Matt seems to thrive in community. Finally, as we celebrate Matt, he would like to thank and celebrate the following individuals for their support in helping him to achieve this milestone. His wife, Bree, their sons, Harrison and Parker, and his parents, Tricia and Larry Smith. Please join me in celebrating Dr. Matt Lawrence Smith.
It's an honor and privilege to introduce Dr. Todd Duncan Stewart. It's tough to encapsulate Todd in 3 minutes. There's much to say, so much will go unsaid. He's accomplished and amazing like all of Cohort 8. So I'm going to focus on the aspects of Dr. Stewart that are uniquely him. Todd respects and appreciates people, all people, and spends time getting to know them. He epitomizes the listening leader. Walking down Appian Way and Brattle Street was always an adventure with Todd. It meant you would stop and speak to some faculty, every staff member you encountered, students, as well as the homeless men who frequented the corner of Church and Brattle. But when I say you stopped, it wasn't just to say hello. It was to ask a personal question, to follow up on a recent conversation about a family member, ask about a challenge they'd shared. He sees in people possibility they don't always see in themselves while caring for them as they are. Todd always apologized for these pauses, but these pauses make him who he is and challenge us all to do the same. Pause and deeply listen. Todd was always the first one at Gutman. He and Dinesh opened up every morning, and every member of C8 and beyond knew we could find Todd in his chair on the first floor of Gutman, 1 table from the window, 2 tables from the journals, facing toward the door. In the mornings, it was around Todd's chair where groups of us dug into work together, asking big questions, digesting a class from the day before, talking about the real world of education. It was a space to express frustration and leave laughing. He held this space for us. I miss Todd's chair. Todd works tirelessly for kids, tirelessly and hard. While most of us were taking a break from our day jobs, Todd continued to run a nonprofit summer camp where no child is turned away due to ability to pay. He was a faculty member for the teacher education program, a teaching fellow, and one of the forces behind the new funding formula for districts in Massachusetts. These are a testament not only to his leadership and how he stepped into roles, but also a manifestation of his values. Selfless commitment to doing the work at all levels. No job is too big or too small if it's for kids. Fix a toilet, host a 5K fundraiser run, support a new teacher, reimagine relational coordination for our sector, all while pursuing his doctorate. Todd and I often talked about how fortunate we felt to be on Appian Way and our desire to be all in on EDLD, on the opportunity we'd been given. Filling his soul chest, growing his leadership, stepping into every opportunity. Friend, you were all in. And he didn't stop at the professional. He and Julie were married in year 2. What a power couple. And he's the first in our cohort to claim the role of superintendent. Todd's an amazing mix of intellect, heart, courage, and humility. You won't find better than Todd Duncan Stewart. Friend, own your awesomeness. You inspire me and all who know you. So grateful for you. I speak for all of us that sharing the EDLD letters with you makes them mean even more. Congratulations, Superintendent Dr. Stewart.
A tribute to Dr. Charisse Taylor. Soon after meeting and beginning to know you, Charisse, I sensed that you were a proponent of abolitionist teaching. Dr. Patina Love, scholar and activist, defines abolitionist teaching, and I would paraphrase to add abolitionist leading, as the practice of working in solidarity with communities of color while drawing on the imagination, creativity, refusal, remembrance, visionary thinking, healing, rebellious spirit, boldness, determination, and subversiveness of abolitionists to eradicate injustice in and out of school. Through your daily leadership walk, you have endeavored to honor your history, the legacy of your Caribbean ancestors, for you believe so strongly that you are because they were willing to cross oceans, to come to a place of opportunity, and then to work without ceasing to forge a different life for you. So I begin by acknowledging the shoulders upon which you stand. Charisse has asked me to thank the other members of her committee, Dr. Drew Eggleston and Victor Capione of the Providence Public Schools, and with a heart overflowing with love, she thanks her brothers, her cousins, her extended family, and numerous friends, and most especially her mother, Lynette Taylor Overby, whom she credits with inspiring her to be tenacious and determined throughout her life. Charisse did her residency with the Providence Public School District under the auspices of the Rhode Island Department of Education, also known as RIDE, during a time of true challenge and transition. Governor Gina Raimondo's appointment of Commissioner Angelica Infante Green signaled a determination to turn around the persistently failing school district. But as in all such efforts, there was skepticism in many quarters of the city. Acknowledging that this was to be RIDE's largest educational endeavor, many wondered if this indeed would result in positive change and whether community members would have a voice in what ensued. Charisse was charged with designing and leading a community engagement strategy that would promote greater collaboration between RIDE and the broader Providence community as they work to develop the district's turnaround plan. Key learning from her residency and capstone analysis include a recognition of how difficult it is both to amass diverse teams and to manage power struggles within and between communities. How the design of the strategy also is challenging, especially when there is deep skepticism and mistrust. How the best laid plans will go astray and improvisation is a needed leadership skill, and how an attempt such as this community engagement strategy, while imperfect, will serve as a building block for future efforts to collaborate in meaningful ways going forward. I commend you, Charisse, for your contributions to RIDE and the Providence Public Schools as you work to ensure that all stakeholders truly would have a seat at the table. And I encourage you to continue growing and expanding in the ways that you can so that you can ensure that you well serve communities and families. Plato said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." As you learned in Providence during your residency and capstone writing, examining your life can be challenging and at times may hurt. But as poet laureate Rita Dove has said, if we don't acknowledge our own interior lives, we don't allow others to acknowledge and validate their own. As you go forth, Charisse, be present as fully as possible. Be there with your doubts, fears, and failings, as well as your convictions, joys, and successes, your listening as well as your speaking, and speak your powerful truth in ways that respect other people's truth so that they can hear your wisdom and learn from your brilliant mind and heart.
Passion, persistence, and poise. I'm not ordinarily one for alliteration, but those are the three traits that come to mind when I think of Courtney Van Cleave, the remarkable education leader I have the honor of presenting to you today. Courtney is a product of and an advocate for rural schools in her home state of Mississippi, where prior to coming to HGSE, she served as a teacher, a principal, and a regional director for Teach for America. Her passion for improving educational opportunity in the Magnolia State runs deep. As she wrote in her capstone, making Mississippi a place worth living for all children seems like a great reason to come back and stay. The specific challenge that led Courtney to apply to the EDLD program was uneven access to quality teaching. Her application said that thousands of substitute-led classrooms across Mississippi make me eager to join the EDLD program and hopefully dig into policies that could increase student access to exemplary teachers. Now, it's not uncommon for students' passions to shift as they progress through the program. And that's not a bad thing. But there's a special joy that comes from seeing students persist in working on a single problem, especially when that problem is so fundamental. In her coursework, Courtney dug into research showing how students benefit from having a teacher of the same race, and how prospective teachers of color are too often prevented from entering the profession by licensure exams that do little to ensure teacher quality. Courtney's proposal that educators already working in schools be able to earn a license by demonstrating their effectiveness in the classroom was at once a matter of common sense, yet also so novel that we struggled to know exactly what to call it. She pitched a pilot of her idea to the Mississippi Department of Education during a summer fellowship, wrote a successful multi-million-dollar grant proposal to support the effort, and returned to the department for her residency to lead it. Courtney faced many challenges along the way, some of them stemming from the remarkable degree of interest the program generated within and outside of the state. Nevertheless, she persisted, and as a result, we will be learning from her work for years to come. Courtney's unflappable poise is evident to all who know her, but was on full display recently in her capstone defense. Now everyone in Cohort 8 faced the unique challenge of conducting their defense via Zoom. Only Courtney did so on an iPhone, unable to see her slides as a result of tornadoes that had knocked out power in the area. Her performance under pressure was nothing short of extraordinary. So it is a great joy to present Dr. Courtney Van Cleave. Courtney, we couldn't be prouder of your accomplishments and can't wait to see what comes next. Congratulations. Michael Aguinaldo Vea is first and foremost a teacher, and an exceptional one. He came to HGSE having been a co-founder and longtime teacher at one of the most successful charter schools in New York City. He had received the Kinder Prize for Excellence in Teaching and the Sontag Prize in Urban Education. Multiple people who have seen Mike in action describe him as the best teacher they've ever seen. So what is it that makes Mike such an effective teacher? Not just of middle schoolers, but of everyone who's fortunate enough to call him a friend or a colleague. He clearly masters his content and is up on the latest in the science of learning and development. But that's not what's most distinctive. Rather, what stands out most about Mike is his unique blend of empathy and selflessness. He has a remarkable ability to take others' perspective and to see the world from their standpoint, both intellectually and emotionally. He's an amazing listener who, when you're talking with him, makes you feel as if you're the only person in the world. And he always puts the need of his students, indeed of all those around him, ahead of his own. In his residency, Mike brought these gifts to an organization called Transcend that helps new and existing schools design and redesign their school models to better serve students. Through his strategic project, he sought to ensure that the instructional core, that is, teachers and learners interacting around content, was the foundation of the organization's work with educators, not an afterthought. In doing so, Mike left his imprint not just on schools around the country he helped to innovate, but also on Transcend, just as I know he made a lasting imprint on me, my colleagues, and his peers in Cohort 8. At a time when it's all too easy for education leaders, and the professors who prepare them, to become distracted by the logistical, managerial, or political challenges of running school systems, the perspective Mike brings to education is desperately needed. It's therefore a great honor to be able to present Dr. Michael Vea. Congratulations, Mike.
I want to personally thank and acknowledge all the individuals who spoke on behalf of the graduating members of the mighty C8. Your words were important and inspiring, most especially at a moment in time when we cannot be together as a community. Thank you for your thoughtful and reflective comments on each graduate and for all that you've done to highlight their remarkable accomplishments. I focus my opening remarks on just one way in which each member of the cohort had an individual impact through their work in the EDLD program. In addition, each graduate selected a speaker who expounded upon those reflections and shared rich evidence of the individual impact of our graduates. I hope it was clear to all who observed that each member of the cohort has left a positive, indelible mark at HGSE and at their residency site. The individual impact of each member is undeniable. While in many ways we are here to applaud those individual accomplishments of the cohort, I submit that the collective impact of the cohort is as powerful, if not more powerful, as the impact of any one individual. I have learned many lessons through my career in school and district leadership. One of those lessons is that no one successful leader alone carries the water forward. Our impact as system-level leaders will be evaluated by our ability to bring a diverse set of leaders and voices together, to collaborate and to partner to lead ambitious and complex work. When Dia proclaimed that the future is cross-functional, she was exactly right. The future, particularly in education, is cross-functional. And inherent in any organization that works cross-functionally is an organization that prioritizes teaming, collaboration, and coordination. I encourage you to employ and leverage what you have learned about teaming and enact that learning as you organize for the messy and complex work which is awaiting you. In my introduction, I also asked you to reflect on a simple question. What is the legacy and story of C8? For sure, much of that is still unwritten. I'm confident that each of you will have individual impact in the sector that will dramatically improve outcomes and opportunities for the students, the families, the communities you will serve. The story of C8, however, won't be wrapped up in any one graduate's impact. The story of C8 will be told by the collective impact of the cohort. My advice to you is to maintain a close connection and to leverage the EDLD network. You will share many moments of individual and collective pride, and you should revel in that success. You will also share moments of pain and frustration, and you must be there to support each other through these difficult times. I know that C8 will achieve greatness. I'm confident in that. I'm so eager for you to get out into the sector. Our students, our families, and our communities deserve great leaders like you driving an equity agenda that delivers on an excellent education for too many of our young ones who have been denied an excellent and equitable education. I'm so excited to listen and read as you collectively craft the final chapter of C8's legacy and impact. This, my friends, is the most important chapter you will write. Congratulations and Godspeed, C8. We are proud of you. We will be cheering you on from Appian Way or a nearby location. Keep in touch and know that you have adoring fans on the HGSE campus who will do whatever we can to support you. Take a few days to celebrate and then begin writing that final chapter of your collective impact. Congratulations.